So once we are in our HTML, let's go all the way to a bottom, right, where we have this section, right? So this was our header section. So here we're just going to say that this is going to be a end of a header over here, and here we're going to say that this is going to be a photos section, right? So here we're going to add a bunch of photos over here, right? So we go to photos, and the first thing that we want to do is actually create over here a section, and we're going to say that section is going to have a ID of photos over here like this, and then within that section we're going to create over here a div, right? We're going to say div, and we're going to say this is going to be class, and this is going to be container over here like this. Then within that container we're going to create a row, so I'm going to say div class row over here, and within that row we obviously would need to place a, let's say, 6 images, right? So we're going to have to create a div with a class of columns, and over here what I'm going to write is the value for this class. It's going to be a column over here. Then it's going to be for a medium screen. I would want a, let's say, the div that's spanning 4 columns over here like this, right, for the medium. However, for the small one, I would want over here that's spanning for the half the screen. So it's going to be spanning 6, because we know that the total is 12, right? So over here, if I have 3 columns, that's going to be equal 12. Here it's going to be 2 divs that are going to be equal 12, right? And after that, we're actually going to add right away a couple of classes for the image, right? So first we need to actually add an image, right? So now we have 1 of them, right? This is going to be our 1 div, but actually total we're going to have 6. So here I'm just going to say that this is going to be image, this is going to be a source, and we're just going to start placing, right? So first one, I believe it's going to be soups, right? But again, as always, you can add your own, which one suits you best, right? You can see that this is going to be my soup, right? And after that we need to add a alternative, right? But maybe let's make this one a little bit smaller, so I have a little bit more room. So I'm just going to call this soup, and here I'm going to say that it's going to have right away, I'm just going to add the class of image responsive, because it's always the best practice right away add that, so we know that it's going to be adding to our let's say view, right? And over here what I'm going to say that the style, and right away again I'm going to say display inline. Remember the same thing that we did with the header, right? But there I was styling it in a CSS. Over here I'm just going to add it right away for all of them, right? So now I can see that it's my first image is sitting right here, right? But if you remember from a beginning when I was showing you, we actually had a little text when we were actually hovering over it, right? So I'm going to create that text. However, for the lightbox effect that we're going to be creating, we will going to be need to create over here this link. So I'm going to create a link over here, right? And we're not going to add any classes yet. We're only, once we're going to add a lightbox, then we're going to work with this one, right? But we're going to create a link, and over here we're going to create a heading 2, and within that heading 2 we're going to write that this is going to be soup. Now I can see that it's right now it's sitting over here, but we're going to actually fix that, right? So don't worry about it. And over here, once we're done, now we're actually ready to copy this div, right? So you can see that this is going to be my row, so I need to create 6 of those, right? So I'm just going to say that I want to copy, and we're just going to paste it. So this is the first one. Then we're going to also going to paste it, right? Paste it one more time, right? So now it should be 3 of them, right? Then we're going to paste it one more time and 2 more times, right? So we paste it, and what we're going to do is we're going to paste it one more time. I'm just going to paste it, and now we should have 6 of them. But obviously what we need to do is we need to change the values over here, right? So we need to change the value for a different image, right? And that different image in this case is going to be spring rolls. So what I'm going to do is everywhere where I have soup, I'm gonna press the command, right? And I'm just gonna click, and I'm gonna select everywhere where I have soup, right? I have soup over here, and let's just check if I have soup anywhere else. I don't. So over here, what I do is I just delete all of this, right? I don't want soup. I actually want a spring rolls, right? So I write spring rolls, right? So now you can see that I have my spring rolls image, right? And let's keep moving forward. And again, let's find where we have another image, right? So in this case, I have soup. So again, I want to delete this soup, and I want to have over here this soup. So over here, we're going to say that this is going to be appetizers, right? So I'm just going to delete this again, and I'm going to say appetizers. So I go appetizers over here like this, right? So now we have a different image, right? And obviously all of those images are located over here, right? You can either way, however you want to do it. It's a little bit easier for us to not to, delete one by one, but just work like this, right? And you can see this is going to be my appetizers, right? So over here, I close this, and we go back to our index.html. We go to the next one, right? And again, I press Command, and then we select all of them, right? So we can change it over here, and we're just going to delete this. And the next one we're going to add is actually signature 1, signature 1 over here. So now I have this image, right? And then after that, what we're going to do is add over here a signature 2. Very, very basic and straightforward, right? So I have soup. So we're just going to have a signature 2 over here. And then after that, we're going to add, obviously, over here, a signature 3, right? So we're going to go over here, and we're just going to add soup, and it's going to be signature 3. Signature 3, right? So this is going to be 3 of them. You can see that right now, obviously, they're different sizes and everything. If you want right away, you can crop them, let's say in Photoshop or something, make them all the same sizes. We're going to do it in CSS, but it's obviously actually makes a little bit more sense if we're doing it right away in Photoshop. I just didn't do it this time because of the video and everything, right? So now we have added our images, and that's pretty much it for a HTML. So what we would need to do right now, we're just going to save this HTML over here, and maybe let's right after this section right away create a comment. This is going to be end of photos over here like this, and we're just going to save this. And now we're ready to go to our main CSS and actually style this photos, right? And the first thing that I want to do is obviously create over here a comment. First of all, I'm going to say photos, right? This is where we're going to be working. And now we're going to create a bunch of room just so it's easier for us to work, right? And the first thing that we want to do is actually add a photos, and we would want a padding, right? And we want padding left and right. So I'm going to say padding, and horizontally I would want 3 EMs so you can see how they moved. And I would want vertically I would want 3 EMs, and horizontally I'm going to have 2 EMs, right? So now you can see that we added the padding. Then I'm going to add something that we're going to later use, but I'm going to say that over here, this column MD4 that we were using, I would want actually a position to be relative. And I'll show you why we're doing this later once we're going to be working with the text. Just so we know right now, we're going to do that right now, but later on I'll show you why we're doing that. And over here, we're going to start working with the photos. So we're going to write photos over here, image, and then we're going to say what kind of properties we would want. And first we would want a width to be 100, right? Just for the small screens, they actually fit like this, right? Exactly in the middle of our screen, right? So we don't have a problem. And over here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do the height. We're going to height, let's say the height is going to be, let's say like something like 30 EMs, right? So now, again, if you would have done it in Photoshop, you obviously would have right away the images that are all the same size. We did it in CSS. Well, it is smart to do it in a Photoshop, but again, just for time saving purposes, we were doing like this. And then what I want to do is over here, if we look at it over here, we just want to create some margins over here, right? So over here, I'm going to say that I would want a vertical margin, and I'm going to say this is going to be 2 EMs again, and the first one is a vertical, and then the second one horizontal I want 0, so I'm just going to leave it like this. And I would want a border radius, right? I'm going to write border radius, and I'm going to say that I want like something like 2 EMs, right? And right now what I want to do is add this over here, that as we're going to be hovering, they're actually like kind of like they're going to scale. They're all going to become a little bit bigger, right? So over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be a transition, right? And I'm going to say that this is going to be transform, and it's going to take 2 seconds. And I'm going to say ease over here in, and this is going to be out, right? And after that, what we need to do is write over here photos, and we're going to say that image, right? And then as we're hovering over the image over here, then we would want that to happen. So I'm going to say opacity 0.8 over here like this, and we would want a transform, right? This is going to be the property, and I'm going to use scale, right? And scale should be 115, right? So let's check it out what happens, right? So I'm just going to make this bigger just so we can see better. And you can see what happens. You see how our photos, as we're hovering over them, right? You can see how they're actually getting bigger, right? And this is how we achieve with this transition and transform, right? So we're just going to go back, and we're actually going to start working over here with these headings, right? Because I want to place them over here, and I want them to be shown only as I'm hovering over the picture, right? So we're going to go back, and over here what we need to write that we want a photos over here, and we want photos heading too, right? And the first thing what we want to do is actually write position, and over here we'll want to say a position, and we want absolute, right? And the reason why we need over here this relative, because I want them, you can see that they're sitting right now all the way on the top, right? And if I wouldn't have this relative, actually I wouldn't have that, right? They're actually going to be somewhere all over the place, right? So you need this relative, and then your actual headings are going to be sitting there. So now I have my headings of absolute, and if I have, let's say, and right now I'm just going to tell them where I want them to be. So I'm going to say that I would want a 40% from the top. You can see right away how they jumped in over here, right? And next I'm going to say that I would want them left, right? 50%, right? So now they're sitting there. But now we need to remember that they have their own height, right? So we need to add a transform, right? Property, and we need to make it a value of translate. And we would want a negative 50% over here and negative 50%, right? Now you can see that they're actually in the middle, right? And this is what we wanted. Then we would want a border top, right? We want to create some borders on the top. We want a border top, and we want a border top of 0.15 EM solid, let's say black, over here like this. Then we have a border bottom, and that also is going to be 0.15 EM solid black over here like this. Then after that, we're going to say that we're going to have a color, and the color is going to be red over here like this, right? And after that, we're going to say that actually the display, we're going to set display to none, right? And over here, we're going to say display is none, right? So now it's actually disappeared. However, what we're going to do is over here, as we're hovering over the images, right, we're going to actually, it's going to appear. So what I'm going to say over here is going to be photos over here like this. And this is going to be the column that we used before, column MD4, right? So that's the parent element, right? And as we're hovering over that column, hover, and then we're going to say H2 should have a display of block. So I say display and the block. So now let's save this. Now let's check it out, right? So what happens is only as I'm hovering over the pictures, you can see that my text is appearing, right? And later on, we're going to create a light box with this text. So every time we're actually hovering over it, right, it's going to lead us to our light box. Now, one more thing that I actually want to add over here after display none, let's say we're going to say a font size over here. And we're going to say, like, let's try like 4 EM, right? So this one is not big enough. So maybe let's try even bigger. And what do we have, right? So this is better. Maybe let's try like something like 10. Right? So let's save this. What do we have, right? And also you can see this one is a little bit better, right? It's right in the center. So now that we're ready with this, let's actually go ahead to our index.html and make our forms, right? So again, this is going to be right that now we're going to be creating a forms. So I'm just going to create, this is going to be end of photos, and I'm going to say that this is going to be forms.